Welcome to the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships forged. I'm Rebecca Monet, CEO and Chief Scientist at Zorakle Profiles, along with my co-host, community advocate, speaker, author, coach, and entrepreneur, Tracy Kawa. Our special guests today are
I love it. I love it. We're our special guest. It's great to be here, Rebecca, as always.
you. It is, we don't get a chance, just the two of us, to sit here. We're usually interviewing some really powerful franchise pros and hearing their stories. So I thought it would be
Learning so
interesting
much.
for us to share a little bit about ourselves and what we're up to so we can get our audience engaged in what we're doing. So do
Yeah.
you mind? Let's start with you, Tracy. The kind of title of the show, The Franchise Woman, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships forged. So my question to you is, what is your purpose? What are you passionate about?
I'm passionate about people's success and giving a voice to maybe people who don't have a voice or don't think that they can do it, whatever it is, right? Guiding the future generation. That's my passion and purpose, really helping people to create livelihoods for themselves and their families. Yeah.
And you've been coaching for many years now, doing just that. Folks that are in career transition or building businesses.
Let's see, my books, right? It's the 7 pillars of reinvention, finding your passion and purpose, and then faith, hope, and options amid career transitioner's Bible. So yeah, so a lot of my coaching work is based, as you know, on the Zorakle Profile, which I am the number one advocate for it. I'm the poster child for it, because it really helps us understand ourselves in a deeper, more complex way than most of us actually dive into.
It's so true. It's the old saying of know thyself. If you want to be successful, you first have to look within. And the Zorakle tool does that. And you use that tool to dig deep with those individuals that are doing a career transition, or they have a business and they're wanting to scale it and to grow it. It always starts with us, right? That's the common denominator in everything.
Use it for businesses with entrepreneurs. We use it for team building. That communication component of it is absolutely incredible for team building. Most of the time, we think we're speaking to another person, and we're really speaking to our own values. We're not really speaking to their values. We're speaking to our own values. We're already bought into the idea. But how do you influence others? By speaking to their values.
Absolutely. And this is why I have now for what, 8 years, 9 years, long time. We've been working together, and I've enjoyed doing so because our values do align, our purpose and our passion aligns. My purpose is similar, and why I created the Zorakle tool and a tool prior to that. It's all about what do we need to do to help that business owner succeed. And since franchising is obviously a love of mine, actually the free enterprise system is the love of mine. It's about the franchisee succeeding and the franchisor benefiting by that success. But it comes back to the same thing. We
It's a
need
win-win-win.
It is a win-win-win. It's about knowing that individual, knowing that franchise concept, and seeing how they align, or if they don't, making sure that we are aware of that also. So my passion and your passion about helping others succeed really is what drew us together.
Oh, yeah.
Yay. Yay. So I want to, it's been interesting. we've been working hard these last few years in assessing franchisees and business owners and looking for patterns, right? Is there some markers that are consistently off or trending in a particular way, no matter what the industry, no matter what the vertical? So we've been really watching this data, and the data that we've been particularly interested in is around emotional and social intelligence. And we're seeing some pretty prominent trends that are concerning to both of us for future business owners, that if these trends continue, we can begin to see some challenges that franchisors and franchisees and business owners might be experiencing. So what are you finding, Tracy, in terms of the emotional and social intelligence when you're coaching business owners? What have you noticed?
It's so interesting that you're starting with that question, because we live in such a time of, yes, social media and microwaves and this whole society of instant gratification that, what happens to emotions, right? I want to act on my emotions right now, or I don't like what happened here, I'm quitting, or right there, we see how we react in so many different scenarios. And I've also been privy to sit in on some of the amazing high performing, mid performing, and low performing reports that you've delivered to some of these franchises. And I can't help but constantly notice how not only like that emotional and social intelligence component is kind of decreasing within this type of society that we're in, but also what goes with that is the decrease in communication as well. And to me, that has struck me at my core.
Yeah, yeah. It is fascinating as I deliver spot on blueprints for franchisors. And for those of you not familiar with this spot on blueprint, basically we're assessing all franchisees within a franchise concept. And then the franchisor separates them into top, mid, and low performing franchisees. And then we look at the psychographic data to see if there's any correlation to performance and to compatibility. And it's pretty amazing each time when you see certain patterns showing up, in particular, the emotional and social intelligence. The emotional and social intelligence has huge financial consequences. A single 1 or 2% difference in one of 20 markers can have a $60,000 to $100,000 difference. So if you're off by 4% in one marker, forget the others, right? One marker, that's $250,000 or $240,000 minimum you've left on the table for that franchisee and business owner. So I am screaming about this. And not just worried, because I'm worried because of these patterns and these concerns that I have, including ones that you have mentioned, where instant gratification, lack of self-discipline, lack of self-motivation, lack of initiative, lack of drive, a lack of commitment, inability to take a risk, right? All things required, inability to look at ourselves and say, where are my strengths? Where are my weaknesses? So I can then either hire to my weaknesses or get better at certain things as a business owner. These are just the emotional intelligence markers that we are seeing dramatically dropping for these last couple of waves of franchisees. By waves, I'm usually talking about generations, right? As folks get ready to buy businesses. So it's a big deal. And it's upsetting to me, especially with our purpose being we want to help our future business owners be successful. It's upsetting to me that we're watching these numbers move in a direction that we don't want them
negative trend.
to move.
Rebecca, I just want to make it really clear about what you just said. I want to highlight that point. You said that if someone is off just a couple of points in emotional or social intelligence, that correlates to $60,000 to $100,000 being left on the table. Is that what you said?
Yes. And there are 20 markers in EQ, SQ. So a single marker, if it's off by a couple of points, you're leaving a lot of money. So let's say you're off in 5 of those markers. Wow. That's a lot of money left on the table. And so it's just really important for us to understand. I'll give you an example, right? There are 2 markers in emotional intelligence, and then hopefully we'll talk about social intelligence too, but that are dramatically changing. One is adaptability, and then the other one is initiative. So you would think, having come through COVID, where we had to pivot and we had to do things differently, that our business owners would be more adaptable today than they were 5 years ago. The opposite is happening. We're becoming more rigid in our mindsets and more, it's got to be this way kind of thinking that's happening. So adaptability markers are dropping, and adaptability is one of 6 grit markers, right? It's, Muhammad needs to go over the mountain, through the mountain, under the mountain, whatever he needs to do to get to where he wants to go. If we don't have that level of adaptability, we're not going to get there, right? That kind of tenacity that goes with it. Initiative, another one. Initiative is a form of courage, that I'm going to do what needs to be done, even when I don't feel like it, or I may not even know how to do it, but I'm going to do it anyway. It's
find out how to do it. Self-motivation, right?
Mm-hmm. Agreed. So these are just a couple of the markers that are of concern to me as I have looked at thousands of franchisees in the last number of years, that this is going to be a problem, and how it's going to affect our franchisors when we have franchisees lacking courage, lacking initiative, lacking adaptability, lacking commitment, lacking self-awareness, right? It's going to put a bigger burden on our franchisors to make the business go. And of course, the frustration that franchisees might experience if they lack those kinds of skills. Are you seeing the same thing in your independent coaching out there?
Oh, absolutely. I'm definitely seeing people reacting rather than taking a moment, giving themselves a 5-minute timeout to regroup, right? Phrasing things properly. To get what they want. That's part of influence. You can phrase something, or you can phrase it well. Excellent. You can get something off your chest, or you can say something in a way that will positively influence the outcome you want. Yeah. And we're not stopping to say, hey, what is the outcome I want? I just want to blow off steam. And that's what I'm seeing most of.
Wow. And that makes sense, Tracy. Yeah. Especially when you talked about social media, that we are expressing ourselves in anonymity in more harsh ways rather than in empathetic and kind and great communication ways. We're using more and more emotion rather than logic to make decisions, and that's affecting our communication. It's affecting if a business owner is going to get up and go to work, right? I don't feel like it, I'm not in a mood, I got in a fight with my spouse, or it's too pretty out, or whatever. That self-discipline, self-control, self-motivation
Let alone setting the culture, let alone getting up, being present and setting the culture for the rest of the team. Because we all know what happens from the top down. Whatever culture that top person sets kind of permeates.
Yeah. Yeah. The head controls the body, right?
Right. You know, Rebecca, I also want to bring up something that really struck me like a ton of bricks. And it was in an interview with Jerry Henley, where he literally mentioned that a lot of franchisors think that that a certain percentage or a certain amount of their franchisees are top performers. But when you take out the outliers, that really high achieving person who's carrying that average up, when you take out the outliers, it tells a whole different story. And I was really, really struck by that because I think that's an area that franchisors need to take a deeper dive into, especially using the Zorakle profile, the tools, and seeing like where are these outliers happening and what happens when you take the outliers away. Does that skew the high performers more so down to the lower ends of the scale? That is worthwhile to look at. That should be grabbing every franchisor's attention.
Yeah. It reminds me of the conversation we had with Dan Rowe also, who addressed that our primary focus as franchisors is to make sure our franchisees are successful, that they are profitable, that they're not by default making money because it's a great marketplace, or they have a huge territory or whatever, but they really do have completely taken advantage of that territory and built the business that they can, that is possible within that territory. Which brings us to the conversation around social intelligence. The emotional intelligence, many people kind of get, right? But when we talk about social intelligence, we're talking about all of those things having to do with managing our relationships. So those are markers around leadership and influence and developing others. It's around social awareness. You kind of addressed this a little bit ago. Are we service oriented? Are we empathetic? Are we compassionate? Are we too much so? And how do we manage our relationships? Can we deal with conflict? Can we build a team? Can we naturally collaborate? All of these things are important, especially as business owners and especially as franchisees in individual marketplaces.
Absolutely. And I think the most important point to drive home there is it's really not enough for us to evaluate our own social intelligence because it's how the world sees us. It's how our coworkers see us. It's how our bosses see us. It's when we say something, how are other people responding? We think we might be phrasing something all white glove, nice kid glove, soft. And maybe somebody else who was receiving that message feels like they're being hit with a hammer.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's really important for us to not only understand how we see ourselves and how we're viewing ourselves, but to really get to know how other people are viewing us.
Yeah, that's a great point, Tracy. It reminds me of a franchisor who called me some time back. And he says, I got this great franchisee in a really great marketplace, but he could be doing a ton better if he wasn't constantly going through managers, because he had a multi-unit and then he had great managers in each of those locations. He said, but he keeps going through managers. Can you run an assessment on this franchisee? Tell me what the heck is going on. And to your point, a lot of it was around his social intelligence. This was not that there was an employee problem in his marketplace. This was the issue with the franchisee. He lacked compassion and empathy. He was harsh in the way he spoke. He didn't have good markers on either collaboration and team building. Conflict, he would, push that underneath the carpet. He was slow to decision. All markers that led to managers who were like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
We can't get anything done. He's not working with us. And they would leave and they would go to a competitor. So once we understood those, in this case, mostly social intelligence markers, then we can go in and we can coach, right? We can
Sure.
help that franchisee look at themselves and say, yeah, you're right. You're right. That's kind of what's going on.
Right. And when we coach them, we're helping them to manage their own thoughts. Like not every thought is a negative thought when you have a negative thought. A negative thought is there to spur you to take action. So you could literally take a negative thought and say, okay, why am I feeling this way? And then work with that negative thought to be able to take the action steps that will help you towards a positive outcome. Right. So negative thought doesn't always relate to a negative outcome.
That's
But
where
it's how you
emotional and
use
social intelligence are hand in glove, right?
right.
If I understand my emotions and
Right.
why I'm thinking this and why I'm feeling this, and I can then equate that to what my behavior is, now
Right.
I have some personal control. Now I can be more empathetic. Now I can deal with conflict better. Now I can build a team better by having,
100%.
yeah.
100%. And that reminds me, just take, for example, a lot of people get anxiety, right? I mean, anxiety can be brought on, from having an interaction with a coworker or a boss, or having an interaction with a customer, just in general, like fear of the unknown or whatever it is. But it reminds me, do you remember when we interviewed Nicole Sala
Yeah.
and she said, anxiety is my superpower?
Mm-hmm.
That to me also struck me because that is an emotionally intelligent response to anxiety. And that's only one example in the face of all of the emotions that arise for us during the day. And none of us are exempt, right? I have like 40 different emotions that arise throughout the course of my day, but I have to know how to process them and where to place them and which ones I need to act on and which ones I need to say, okay, put that in the parking lot for a minute. We're gonna work on that, but later on, right?
Yeah. Yeah, such a big deal, which is, we've been talking about this for a number of years and working behind the scenes for a number of years as we're watching these numbers kind of go crazy. And some of them are driving me nuts, especially this initiative marker where people lack the courage and the risk ability and the commitment and the adaptability, that all of those grip markers driving me nuts. And so we've been working behind the scenes, Tracy and I and team, for a number of years now.
Zorakle.
Yay!
Zorakle.
To provide some insights through some tiny little snippets where we talk about these, what we call the spot on chat. They're just little snippets where we talk on this topic, how you can recognize when someone is off in that, what might be the effect of that. And then we're also working on, and soon to release, we hinted at it a couple of weeks ago, soon to release a whole program for emotional and social intelligence that will be available both for our franchisors and for their franchisees. So I'm excited about it. I know you are.
I'm super excited about it. Super excited. Making the world a more emotionally and socially intelligent place, one franchisee at a time. Right?
Wow. That sounds like we're walking on the moon here. We're going to lands never explored before. This is fabulous. So everyone listen in. We'll be releasing these little snippets on a regular basis. Keep in touch with us. We'll make sure to keep in touch with you guys to let you know the actual launch of this. Reach out if you have any questions at all. We're excited. I know you guys are going to benefit greatly from being involved. So, Tracy, any final thoughts from you?
Oh, just excited to hear from individuals who might be listening. If anybody, like you said, has any questions, just as a reminder to everyone that Rebecca here has been in, I'm sorry, I hope I don't date you, but Rebecca has been in the field of behavioral science for 30 years. So with her lead and guidance, if you have any questions at all about, emotional and social intelligence for your team, please, please, please reach out to us. Listen to this podcast. Think about if you have any questions. Think about where your team really does need to visit or evaluate themselves in those areas of social and emotional intelligence. And we look forward to hearing from you.
I'm so glad you said something about that, because there isn't another assessment tool that has assessed more business owners than the Zorakle tool. We've done over 140,000 assessments on franchisees and prospective franchisees. So we have massive data that no other company has, and we have dissected it and looked at it and considered it with our purpose and with our passion in mind, which is to make sure business owners are successful. So I think you guys are going to love what we are up to. And we'll see you guys next week. Well, this time we'll have a different person on our show next week. Goodbye from myself and Tracy. And the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships forged. We'll see you next week.